Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Business Line Podcast, episode 2. We're excited to have all you guys back. Probably some new folks coming in and watching and listening, but just know that we're really super excited to have you here. My name's Brian. This is my good friend,
Manish or Manny.
Manish. You got to know Manish and me a little bit last week. This week, we're expanding out a little bit. We've got a guest with us today, someone I am unbelievably excited to get to know better today with you guys. His name is David Kitchen. He's the founder of a business and organization called Edge Leadership Academy. That speaks to my heart because years ago, my eyes were open to what leadership actually really is and all the things that grew out of that. But just a little bit about David here. He has over 10 years of experience as a collegiate strength and conditioning coach. And at one point, he was the youngest head strength coach in all of NCAA when he was 24 years old. I'm not going to share what I was doing when I was 24 years old because it's not very impressive. He's got experience D1 basketball, Georgia Southern University, also FBS college football at UNLV. He's sporting his UNLV gear right now. That's cool. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and UNLV was it. Larry Johnson and the Rebels, basketball. We all had UNLV hats back in the day. I know that probably doesn't speak to you much. I don't know what was going on in India back
I
in
don't even know what
91.
UNLV is.
Okay, we're going to learn about that a little bit today. So anyway, he runs workshops and consults with over 35 different NCAA teams, including U of M out in Florida. He works with big corporations bigger than us. So we're super excited to have him here. David, tell us a little bit about yourself. Share, bud.
What's up, brother? That's a hell of an introduction, man. I appreciate you guys. No, man, I'm a simple man, honestly. Like I tell people, I'm a business owner and an educator and a leader, but I'm also a brother and a son and a friend, and those are the most important things to me. So my background, man, honestly, I was born and raised in a single parent household. Best gift I could ever be given. My mom was an absolute savage and she worked her butt off to make sure that we had what we needed. Was blessed to be raised by a strong woman, a strong female role model in the house. And so I think that kind of set the stage for what type of leadership I looked for in my life, obviously, because I didn't have a male role model, so got the opportunity to play football, man. And my coaches were like my father all the way through. And I was fortunate to play for a great high school, and I was a good player on a great team. So shout out to my teammates for letting me ride the coattails on that one. Had the opportunity to play in college and got a degree in business. And I walked out with the degree in business, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. So I started selling IT systems. So I was selling like cloud solutions.
There, all right.
Yeah. I was selling cloud solutions to small and medium businesses all over Pennsylvania. And learned a ton, man, because it was door-to-door sales. It was, what do they call it? Verbal jujitsu, man.
Wow.
It's hand-to-hand combat out there. And, so I did that for about a year, and then I got into coaching. And that was when I found, my passion and had the opportunity to have a 10-year career in the NCAA and in collegiate strength and conditioning. Just a small town guy, went from, rural Pennsylvania growing up to all of a sudden I'm coaching against Ohio State on opening weekend. And then the next year we were at USC in the Coliseum, so I got some really cool experiences, man. And it was a great journey. Great people, great institutions, it was just a really, really fun time of my life. But all good things come to an end. And, at some point I realized that one, I wanted to make it a bigger impact than just college athletics. I wanted to do something on a bigger stage. I was fortunate to, at that point, have had my master's degree in sports psychology. And so I was ready and able and willing. And I walked away from my contract extension. So during the pandemic, right after the NCAA tournament was canceled, we had our contract negotiations that following summer, and I got offered the extension, and I just didn't feel right taking it, man. I knew my heart was somewhere else. And so I walked away and I launched Edge Leadership Academy, and flash forward 3 years, man, here we are running and gunning and, getting the opportunity to work with leaders and entrepreneurs and coaches and athletes and corporate level people and C-suite execs and nonprofits, dude. It's been such an awesome run, man. I've been so fortunate to be surrounded by great people, have some great opportunities and make the most of those opportunities throughout the ride.
That's cool. It's really neat to hear. I can hear the humility and the gratefulness in your voice, and that speaks to me a lot. we got a lot of common, brother. It's crazy because it never ceases to amaze me how Providence kind of brings people together in the strangest of ways, right? We're sitting in front of a camera, recording, talking to each other. Hopefully, we're sharing enough and inspiring enough people to go out and get after it too. But single parent, I was in foster care and stuff, pushed around family to family for a long time, but very similarly, in my eyes, God put people in front of me that I needed, to keep me on the right path, because Lord knows I would have made some dumb decisions. I mean, I did, but it's like, hey, here's a ditch, get back on the road. Here's a ditch, get back on the road. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And cutting your teeth in IT, that was I had a situation in my life where I was in nonprofit. I went to school for sociology. I was going to save the world, working for like the Boys and Girls Club. That's what I wanted to run, the Boys and Girls Club of America. That didn't work out. And I started working with the Boy Scouts, and that, and I changed, and I ran into kind of this quasi board, nonprofit political situation where I wasn't happy. My rose colored glasses were shattered when it comes to how I was going to make an impact. Mm-hmm. And it was IT sales that saved me. Of all things, it was managed services, so similar. Yep. But B2B, it wasn't necessarily door to door, but I had to learn quick. And again, I got connected with some people who built into me, and went from there. So it's kind of neat to hear about that. Tell me a little bit about early on, and as you're going through kind of your education and stuff, learning about business in school, and actually being an athlete. How did you manage that in your life? Because I know I wasn't successful in my collegiate athletic career. I was a dumb, uncoachable person that didn't listen to anybody. And so I was only playing D3 football, and I didn't work hard at the time. So tell us about how you navigated that.
You told me that you were a really good player.
I could have been. I was fast.
New things. I'm learning
too
new
big.
things about
my mind was too big for my britches. That's what my parents would have told me, because I wouldn't listen to anybody. So anyway, this isn't about me. This is about David. You stop it.
So David, so I really like your name, David Kitchen. I'm really fascinated, with your last name. So what's the story behind that, and what's the history?
Dude, honestly, I don't know.
I mean, it's totally off.
I have no idea. No, it's so crazy. I get so many people that ask me that question. I should do the ancestry.com and figure it out, because I don't know. Yeah. I have no idea where the last name came from.
I mean, I've never heard of a surname like that, and it's beautiful. I mean,
you just like it because you spend too much time in the kitchen.
No, eating, but otherwise, I'm forbidden to enter the kitchen.
You and me both. But no, man, my college days, we have that in common as well, dude. I was very much so like you. When I was growing up, because I was in that single parent situation and, had to help raise my brother and had to be a role model for him, I was very much on the straight and narrow. And it doesn't mean I wasn't a little bit of a knucklehead in high school. I was, but I was a little bit more subtle about it, I guess would be the way to put it. And then when I got to college and I no longer had that responsibility because nobody was watching me, I let loose, man. And all the childish impulses and all the ego-driven decisions came flooding out, right? So my weekend started on Wednesday, and I would party Wednesday to Sunday, man. And I was I was at a D3 school as well, so I played at Susquehanna University. And to be honest with you, man, my coach told me straight up, I was a nightmare. I was a nightmare, man. And we have a really good relationship now, because I went back there and coached later in my career. But I asked him, why didn't you kick me off the team? Dude, why did you keep me? I was the guy that wasn't showing up on time. You couldn't count on me to be in class. I may or may not show up to meetings. I probably was in trouble over the weekend. And he said, Kitch, you needed football more than football needed you. And he was 100% right. I needed that. Yep. I needed that structure, because if I didn't, I really would have spun off the rails. And so I played 2 years, and then I ended up blowing my knee 3 times. So I got medically disqualified going into my junior year. And so that was when I actually started to focus on my academics. My freshman year, man, I had a 2.1 GPA. I was barely eligible. Like I said, I was a nightmare, dude. Nightmare. And then, as I got older and as football got taken away from me, I realized I have to figure this thing out. because nobody's coming to save me. This is my life. This is my responsibility. I have to get back on track here. And so fixed my academics, took an internship in London, actually. So our business school is one of the top 50 in the nation as far as business university or business colleges go. So I was able to take an internship with a company out of the Czech Republic. And the way it works is they pay for your housing and they pay for your classes so that you can take classes while you're in London so you don't fall behind. So I convinced about 5 of my friends to go with me. And we went to London for 6 months and worked as consultants for, it's called Husky International was the name of the clothing brand. And basically we called it the Don't Stop the Party Tour. So we partied for 6 months in Europe and traveled. But that was my first taste of being an adult and being in the business world. And it planted a seed that I didn't know, really mattered until now, but got the opportunity to present in front of their board. And so to do that, to present in front of a multinational corporation at, 21 years old is a pretty cool opportunity. Unfortunately, I'm not the guy to tell you about time management. I'm not the guy to tell you about, taking full advantage of every resource our university had to offer. I did not. And I regret it, but it did lead me to where I am today. And so I learned a lot. And like I said, that London and the European experience was one of the biggest experiences, most important experiences of my life.
That's cool. Manny, you got anything? I've got a ton of questions. You got anything?
Yeah, the first question, what sports are we talking about here?
Football.
Manny's not really big on the up and up on U.S. sports. So Manny's.
Oh man,
obviously
we got to get him.
He's a big.
I just moved here, and this is for the viewers, who will be watching from India. So what sports we are talking about here? I mean, what sports you used to play?
So I played football specifically. I coached a little bit
American
of everything.
Football.
Yeah, American football. Yeah, American football. Listen, if you're not into it, this is the weekend to get in. Big weekend in college football coming up. So
yeah, I'm trying to learn the how this works.
And we've got
teaches me almost like every
basketball games, and we're in the Midwest. We're in Wisconsin, so
in the basketball games, I like the energy of the people, especially in the college games.
He went to a Marquette game last year, and he loved that.
I loved that. Yeah. I mean, I loved how the people were, cussing the referee, how they were, rooting for their team. I loved the energy, energy. And the game was so fast. I mean, I wanted it to go for maybe 3 days.
Yeah, no, it's fun, man.
That's what cricket does.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun.
So you coached, played football. I think you did some basketball coaching and things too, right? And some strength and conditioning.
Yeah, specifically strength and conditioning. Yeah, so I handled all the training process. So everything behind the scenes, as far as the weight training, the conditioning, all of that stuff was run through me. And then obviously like game day warm-ups and things like that I ran as well. Did a lot of like return to play. So if a player got injured, they would work with me specifically, along with the athletic trainers to get them back on the field or the court or whatever they were at. So yeah, it's pretty cool. You get to learn how the human body works. You get a real understanding and a real appreciation for how athletic and how explosive some of these Division I athletes are. And for all of us that were D3 guys, like you're always like, maybe I could have. And then you get around them and you're like, no, I couldn't have. Whoa. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You realize like this is a different breed. This is a different, it's barely even the same human species. Like these dudes are different.
David, Brian said, he doesn't want to hear crazy stories. I want to hear those.
I don't want too crazy because I don't want to get like a YouTube strike because we're talking about stuff we don't need. Or I don't want to get David in trouble with people that said like what happens in the Czech Republic.
Okay, we won't record that stuff, but I want to hear stuff.
No, man, it was I'll give you a story. So the project was 6 months long that we were working on, and basically what they were trying to do is they wanted American consultants that would find out if it was a good idea for them to expand into North American markets. So they were primarily a European company. They were looking at expanding into the American markets. They wanted us to do all the industry research, all the market research, figure out what the landscape was, figure out if it made sense. So they grouped us into like groups of, I believe there was 5 of us. And so in my group was me and 2 of my teammates from college that were on the trip with me. And then we had other people in the group that were with, so I guess there was 6 of us. There's 3 other people in the group with us that were, we'll call it much more studious than we were. And so we went through, the semester long or the 6-month long program. And the final project and the final thing was that we flew to Prague to the headquarters, and we got to present to the board and to the CEO and the founders and all their people. And so we had to put this presentation together and get ready to roll. So obviously we did very little of the work. The football guys, we did a lot more of the partying. So we get to Prague and we're there for 3 days, and they put us up in a 5-star hotel. It was beautiful. And we decide the first night that we're going to take our team out on our dime, because in Prague, American money it outweighs the exchange rate is ridiculous, right? So you can spend a lot of money and not spend a lot of US money. So we took everybody out. It's wild. So we took everybody out and we were drinking absinthe and having a great time. I won't mention all the places that we went, but we were all over the place and we had a blast. And
yeah, I already like this story.
Yeah, we had a great time. So for us, the football guys, this was a normal Saturday. Like, we're like, hey, this is cool, and we put the rest of our team out of commission. They were so hungover that they did not do much of the work. And so we had to put together this final project, and we had done none of the lead up work the rest of the semester. So we really did not have much clue of what we were talking about. So we start putting together the project. The night before the project, we say, you know what? We got to blow off some steam. Let's take them out again. We'll just have a couple drinks. We won't get crazy.
Sounds like a great idea.
A couple beers. Yeah, we'll just have a couple beers. So we took them out, had a blast. Same thing happened. We end up just raving, having a great time. So we come back that night. We have to present in the morning. Again, they're out of commission. So we're up. We're on deck here. So we're in there, as hungover as can be. And we went against every recommendation that the rest of the people in the group had made all semester long, and completely redid the presentation. And so we ended up telling the company that they should not expand, that it wasn't the right time to get into the United States, and it wasn't the right time to get into Canada. And everybody thought that they wanted to hear that they should expand, right? I came out and just said, hey, I don't think it's a good idea. And the CEO is sitting there and he's silent. And I'm like, oh man, I just really blew this. Like, this is bad. And finally he looks up at me and he goes, I like you. And I was like, okay. So he took us that night, took our whole team to his mansion and opened up his wine cellar to us and had catered meals. And we stayed the night in his mansion and we partied and had a blast with the whole senior staff, the C-suite of the company. And then he gave us, on the way out the door the next morning, he gave us all a 1-week Euro pass, so we could take the train anywhere in Europe. So we traveled for a week all over Europe. And he said, I appreciate people that are honest. And that's why I like you Americans. He said, you have no shame. So I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, man, that's a little story, a little glimpse into the Don't Stop the Party tour in Europe.
So as he's entertaining you, did you guys share with him like what had happened leading up to you guys doing the presentation yourself?
No, we acted like it was. Yeah, we acted like that was planned. Yeah, no, we.
Yeah, you guys did all the research, and we were working hard.
It's a good idea. We just flipped a coin.
Yeah,
expand. Or
we just kept it quiet. Away. Just kept it quiet. Kept it pushing. Yeah, man, it was.
Well, ultimately, the honesty worked,
wild
right?
time.
The truth.
I think I can picture that brand. It's a Husky, right?
Yeah, Husky Limited or Husky Unlimited, one of the two.
Yeah. Okay.
It's basically like North Face.
Yeah. Yep. Like
they do like camping, outdoors,
kind of thing.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. That's a heck of an experience, David, to have at such a young age.
It was phenomenal. Yeah.
That's wild. Very cool. All right. So now talk a little bit about your leadership organization. How'd you make the jump? Like you when you're in the intro, you were talking a little bit about how you just decided to leave that contract behind. You're going to do something new. Typically, I can't say typically. I can only really speak for myself and the few folks that I've talked to in their journeys. But the world doesn't exactly teach us what real leadership is, and we're not often just presented with really good leaders. So a lot of the times they're kind of incognito in our lives, right, and we don't recognize it. We just kind of go through life. Things happen to us. All that sucks. We're whining. We just jump from problem to problem. And not taking control and things like that. How did you get into a place like, for me, it was like, I was doing IT sales, and I met a guy, I was just doing, normal kind of business networking in the community that I was working in. And I met a guy, I think through the local chamber, and he started speaking my language. For a couple of years, I'd been reading a couple books that I'd found, I read a book a while back called Think and Grow Rich. I'm trying to get this guy to read it, but he doesn't know how to read apparently. But that kind of shifted my view on the way things work. And then, I got a hold of some Kiyosaki books and stuff like that. A lot of people go down that road. But I was hungry. I was seeing things in my company where I was trying to figure out how to be somebody that could positively influence the people around me, to take some ownership so we could go to the next level, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. Then I met this guy, introduced me to this organization that was all about leadership, got involved with that for a few years. And then I just couldn't stop consuming, and the more you consume, at least for me, the more I started applying that in my life. And it just things, I could go into detail, but again, not about me. But so, and hearing that, what was your journey kind of shift your mindset from being that guy that obviously had some skills and was willing to put the work in, whether it's in sports or whether it's in business across the country or across the world? How did you shift to be into what you're doing now?
Yeah, it started when I got into coaching. You realize you're responsible for being a role model. You're responsible for being, a source of knowledge, a source of perspective for 18 to 22-year-old kids. And so you have to practice what you preach, right? And so I dove headfirst into self-development and left a lot of the old vices and a lot of the old nonsense behind. Like I didn't party anymore. I did, but not like I used to. And pretty much I just locked in, man. I got around people that were obsessed with being the best, right? And especially to Division I level, like you win or you're out. And so I got around people that had that mindset, and I got around people that were always looking for the 1% and the things that they could do better, whether it was as a leader, as a man, as a husband, as a coach. It didn't matter. Like we were always looking for that edge, no pun intended. And so once I got around that, like I was like, I love this. Like these are the types of people that I want to be surrounded with. And so I started to do the work on myself. I started to go down that rabbit hole, like you said, of reading books and really implementing these things into my life and implementing systems and processes and building new habits, and getting extremely disciplined with things. And I saw it pay off really quickly. Like I saw the results really quickly. So I saw my career take off in coaching. And I could attribute it to all the things that I had learned through reading and through being around the right people and surrounding myself with the right mentors and actively seeking out mentorship. And so that for me was like, okay, this is confirmation of what I had already thought. And then basically as a strength and conditioning coach, your job is to build the culture. Your job is to introduce these young men and young women to adversity and teach them to overcome it together. And you put people in leadership roles. And so I had experience building leaders, and I now had some background information as well. I had a master's degree in sports psych. And then I had a player come in my office and he said, "Coach, I've been the best player on every team I've ever been on. And everybody's always telling me to lead. Nobody ever taught me how." And that was like the light bulb moment for me. Like that was like, oh, there's something here. There's something here. Right. And so that's how I launched Edge Leadership Academy. That's when I decided like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to go and teach this to people, because I look back in my own life and I'm like, oh yeah, I've been put in leadership roles from a young age, dating all the way back to, being 10 years old and being the man of the house. And nobody ever taught me how. There's no playbook for this. And so I want to be the person to teach that, right? And I want to be the person to help these people. And so it started with just athletics. And we did like team building, we did leadership development programs, things like that for like the first 6 months. And then I actually had lunch with the guy who's now my business partner, or dinner, I guess it was. And he said to me, "Dude, this stuff would crush in the corporate world." And he had been in sales for 12 years, built a successful career, et cetera. And he said, "Dude, this stuff will crush in the corporate world." And I'm like, "You think?" And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely, man. Let's sit down and let's talk about this." So we built out a whole curriculum of how we would teach leadership in the corporate space. It's very similar to how we would teach it in athletics. And we basically just reverse engineered all the traits of leaders, right? Because at this point, I was going back to school for my PhD in psychology. And so I just took the experience that I already had, the curriculum that I already had, added the research to it, and backed it with research. And now we had this whole curriculum, right? And so what happens was we ended up launching a corporate training division, and we're now at the point where 90% of our clients are corporate, probably 10% are athletic. So it's been a complete shift. That's the Reader's Digest version of the business. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of twists, a lot of turns along the way. But that's kind of how we got to where we are. That's how I got into the leadership business.
Very cool.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
What do you find is one of the biggest catalysts for folks that you start working with that they either lack or they have to be able to make that shift from just being someone who kind of exists in a group and kind of just works there, or to making that shift to realizing that no matter who you are, you're leading in something. You're either good or you're not so much.
Yeah, I think that a lot of that is the result of the environment. But I also think that a lot of people lack the ability to get crystal clear on who they are, right? I think it's really tough for people. If you walk up to a person, right, and you say, what's your vision? Like, what do you want for your life? Right? Like, a lot of people don't have an answer to that question.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And so then if you take it a step further and you say, okay, what's your mission? What do you try and do on a daily basis to get towards the person that you want to become? Most people don't have an answer, right? If you ask them, what are your values? What are the things that you fight for in your life? More importantly, if somebody came to you and took everything away from you, what would you use to rebuild your life? Most people don't know, right? And so I think
for sure,
the first step is defining those things, and then you can start to implement on top of that. But if you don't have that foundational piece done, it's almost counterintuitive, or not counterintuitive, but counterproductive to try and build anything else, because everything will be swayed one way or another. Like, if you're not anchored by a vision, a mission, and a set of values, then everything you do can be swayed by emotion. It can be swayed by external resources and things like that. Like, you have to be anchored in that. And those are the types of people that you want running your company. Those are the types of people that you want running your community, are people that are anchored in a vision, a mission, and a set of values, because it makes every decision for you, right? So when I look at my own life and I say, should I go hang out with this person, for example? All I do is ask myself, does it bring me closer to my vision? Yes or no? Does it help me exercise my mission? Yes or no? Does it reflect the values that I want to stand for? Yes or no? If it's not 3 yeses, I just don't do it. Right? So every decision in your life is made for you if you have a set of visions, if you have a vision, a mission, and a set of values. And I don't think a lot of people do. So that's the number one thing that we try and help people with right from the jump. Before we get into any of the other leadership training, that's where we start.
That's awesome.
So this leadership training that you're talking about, I mean, is this only for the upper management of a company, or it's for everyone in the company?
Yeah, this can be everybody. We do. It depends on the organization, depends on what specifically the project is that they're bringing us in to be a part of. But we've done everything from like C-suite executives and upper management type leadership training. But then we also have done workforce stuff where we bring in employees and we do employee engagement and make sure that everybody understands what their vision, mission, and values is and how they fit within the culture, right? So if I'm in a factory, or if I'm in, I'm a frontline employee in some business, like, how do I fit into this culture? How do I influence change? How do I make sure that our company is who we say we are? What are the behaviors that are associated with that, right? So helping people figure that stuff out is important as well. And that's part of what we do. So we work with every level of the organization. We tailor the material, we tailor the curriculum based on, the level that we're at, but we work with everybody.
So what's the most common type of, problems you face with these, organizations? I mean, I'll just tell you from what I have learned or, seen here in US. I mean, people keep talking about, getting stressed, getting frustrated, if I, from, in my opinion, those are like little things. I mean, I consider every day as a challenge. There will be new challenges that you have to overcome. But the terminology people use over here is, stress,
anxiety.
So how do you tackle that?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that we run into, the number one challenge that we run into is like feedback channels, right? And people's inability to give and receive feedback. That's one of the biggest organizational challenges that we run into.
Mm-hmm.
From the mental health side and some of the anxious and then the anxiety and some of that stuff, that's a little bit outside my scope. That being said, I think if you create the right environment through your culture, I think it alleviates some of that, right? And so I think by creating a space where people know that they are safe, and I don't mean safe space in like the huggy, touchy feely type of way. That's not who I am at all. But safe in the sense that
I don't know. You look like you could give a pretty good hug, David.
I give a mean bear. I give a mean bear hug, bro. But I don't talk about safe places too often. But more so safe in the sense of like we can have a conversation. I can make a mistake. It's not going to be weaponized against me. So I think you have to do things in business in lower stakes environments before you throw someone in a high stake environment, because that's where that overwhelm comes from, right? If I throw you into a high level project in a role that you've never been in before, that's going to be overwhelming and it's going to be somewhat fearful for you, different things. But if I've groomed you and I've given you opportunities to run your own projects and be, put your feet in the water in that role, you're now ready for that, right? So I think we have to do a better job of internally developing our people and putting them in those stretch roles and being intentional about it, right? Because think about it this way, especially from like a sales standpoint. Mm-hmm. How many times in companies does somebody just become the sales manager because they were the highest performing salesman or saleswoman? Like that makes no sense. Why do we do that? They have no management skills. They've never learned how to do any of that stuff.
It's different personalities.
Now we're asking them to do it. Yeah, it's a different job. Yep. But we do it all the time. And it's the same thing within, whether they're project managers within certain organizations, like somebody could be on the marketing team and then all of a sudden they become the project manager for the marketing department. And it's like, where's the bridge, right? You don't want people to feel overwhelmed. You don't want people to feel anxious. And yet we're throwing them in the deep water and not giving them any training because oftentimes there's nobody there to teach them how to do that role.
Yep. It's true. Well, we just hired a new salesperson 2 months ago, about 2.5. And I remember one of the things that I was talking about with Mandy is like, I'm going to hire a new salesperson, but I'm not going to allow him to start selling for 90 days. That's the minimum he's got to get in. He's like, really? 90 days? That's a long time to have a salesperson on the books and they're not out making money. And I'm like, well, it's going to be hard to find someone that has experience successfully doing what we need him to do. Because if he was good at it, he wouldn't be looking for new work because it's high paying. And I'm gonna have to train him, have to put him through things. So, and prepare him. Like in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing heavy role playing for his discovery process and all the things that leads to presenting the solution and stuff. And we're going to hit that pretty hard. And then he's going to have to do a pretty high level training and graduate that training just to get out there and start selling. But he's excited about it because he's been in situations where he's just been thrown to the wolves. Yeah. So
yeah, you got to train your people. You have to invest in them.
Oh yeah. So how does what's it like in India in that same situation, Manny?
I mean, okay, the time period is less over back in India because we want results quickly, and generally we find people who have the kind of experience we are looking for. But yeah, sometimes this industry that we are working in right now. I mean, like I was in India and never thought that we will be working for a US company. And this was thrown at us, like, okay, this is a new opportunity. And what I was doing at my young age, like I was maybe like 19 and I was doing a software course, to become a programmer. And suddenly one day, like an opportunity came, which my mother brought to me. Okay, this is something called, like transcription. It's a US company. They are training people over here. Why don't you go and try there? So, yeah. Out of the blue,
she just wanted you out of the house.
Yeah.
She thought you were sitting around playing video games.
I told you guys, I was a straight kid. I didn't do anything, like crazy stuff. Yeah, no trouble. Yeah, so she wanted me to get out of the house and do some crazy stuff. That I did, when I was working there. So, yeah, this was a new thing. And there was the first time I got in touch with how America works, the American culture, the work environment. It was totally new. It was totally new for around 200 people that they were training. I mean, all these people from America flew in, and they were training it, people from totally different culture,
Mm.
different backgrounds.
Do
It was a 6 month long.
Do you think that was effective?
Oh yeah, it was. Okay, before that, it was in 1997. I never saw any, American movies. Maybe Basic Instinct. Yeah, that was my first movie.
That's a real good first movie to see.
so, so that was the first movie I saw. But before that, I had no clue about what America is. I mean, internet started back in India. It was like, I believe, in 1992. So from there, we started learning about the whole world and everything. But this was like thrown at us. This is the thing that you have to learn, and it took us some time. Exactly to learn what we are supposed to do. It took us almost 2 months to understand. It was totally different. Like how things work there and how things work back in India. So it wasn't wonderful. So I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, I get that.
No, I think it's interesting too, the approach to training. Like some organizations that we work with are very proactive. So for instance, we work with an organization that has what's called a Rising Stars program, right? So they identify people that may be at that front line or that bottom of the organizational chart that have the potential to become a leader, and they deploy resources to train these people to then become leaders. So we go in and we'll work with them and identify, what are some skills that we want these people to build, whether it's one-on-one training or cohort style or whatever. And so there are organizations that do that. I do think that there's not enough of them. And I think the general fear from C-level and senior management is, well, what if we invest in these people and they leave, right? And my question is always, what if you don't invest in them and they stay?
And they stay. Yeah, that's a big one right there. That's a huge one. It's a huge one because it's far worse.
Yeah.
It's far worse to not invest in somebody and they stay than it is to invest and have them leave, because at least you're building into somebody, and they're going to go out and that comes back to you, I believe,
And they may come back in a senior role, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they leave, maybe they get a quick raise or they get a quick title bump or whatever because of the training that you got them. They leave, they're successful for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever, however many years. And then they come back as a senior level manager in your company. That's a win-win. That's a win-win. And if you nurture the relationships and you maintain the relationships and you treat your people right, why would they not want to come back?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very
that
cool.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we have seen that in our company, people who have left us after we gave them training. Now they're back again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of culture we gave them, they didn't find that in some other company. The other companies were not ready to invest on them, and they came back. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Cool. Well, David, we're a producer says we gotta do some other topics here, so we've got a few things. Maybe we'll cut into it. Just real quick, we're a company that I think all companies leverage technology in some way. And one of the big things that obviously a lot of people are dealing with this, especially in 2023, there was a build up to it at the end of last year, but artificial intelligence, right? So a lot of people are scared that computers are going to take their jobs, just like, there's other industries in the last, couple decades that everybody thought that, auto workers were going to be completely replaced by robots, but we still have auto workers, I think there's a balance.
That will happen one day.
Yeah, it will. There's an in between. Like usually there's the extremes and something in between. So do you run across use of AI in your world? Do you leverage it in any way to help you, put together information to help you get things done faster? How are you seeing it affect your business, or at least the businesses that you're working with?
Yeah, I think it's the businesses I work with are always looking to take advantage of AI and automation, especially some of the larger ones. I think for us in-house, it's a little bit different because we're in such a creative space, right? So we use it more for like brainstorming ideas. So I'll be the first to admit that a lot of our content will start with an outline put into ChatGPT, and then we'll take that out. We'll add what we need, what we want, take out, the robotic voices and everything, and make sure it's a fully formed idea. I think the danger for creative companies and companies that leverage IP is to become too reliant on AI, right? Because it's not meant to think for you. And you have to make sure that you're working with AI, right? That to me is the key. And that's a big thing that I try and get across to our team. Hey, I'm okay with us generating content ideas. I'm okay with us generating blog ideas. I'm okay with us generating things like that through AI, right? But we need to remember that we're leveraging AI. We're working with it. That's not a fully formed idea that comes out, right? We have to make sure that we're fleshing things out. And I think that's the big risk for creatives. I think, for some of the processes and some of that stuff, it is extremely helpful. Like we do use it for some of our internal SOPs and some of the things that, we can kind of systematize. Like we will use AI for that. One of the other things that we kind of play with is like some of the Zapier, like the automations and stuff, like the trigger sequences. Some of that stuff is helpful for us just managing like some of the back end, some of our back end operations. But yeah, I don't fear it ever replacing my job. I'm in the people business. And so, I think for me, I'm kind of not AI proof, but I think just with the nature of what I do, it'll be very, very hard for AI to replace what I do. And I think, it's something that we need to invest more time into of like, how can we use this to help us build out other arms and legs of our businesses, right? And I think that's when you look at it, I mean, it's like any major revolution in business, right? The people that figure it out, the early adopters and the people that get on the wave right and spend the time getting educated on it are the ones that are going to make the right pivots and be able to really leverage it, and they'll get a jump, and then things will even out again. And then another big, some other big revolution will come along, and then there'll be another jump. I mean, it's all cyclical, but I think it's here to stay. That's for sure.
Absolutely. How do you feel about some of the ways that it's coming out that people are thinking about using it in healthcare when it comes to, like, I was reading some articles about how pharmaceutical companies are looking at starting to use it because it may be able to speed up the process of testing things that eventually get deployed to people, like where it used to take 12 years, an AI, a learning or a machine AI might be able to cut that down to a couple months. It scares me a little bit, I'll be honest. Or using it in the diagnosis type of category.
Yeah, I think anytime anytime you start to involve like medicine and then humans, there's got to be checks and balances, right? Like there's got to be there's got to be a limit to how far we're going to let this thing go. I think, obviously they're much better at training their AIs, and they have people that do that than like somebody like me. Like it takes me forever to train mine to do just simple tasks,
right? Anything, right?
But for them, they obviously have people that can train them at a high level. But yeah, I think whenever you're involving healthcare in the human body, like there's got to be some checks and balances in there. But I mean, I'm sure. Well, I shouldn't say I'm sure. Nothing's ever sure when it comes to big pharma.
Right.
I'd like to think that there would be.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool, awesome. All right, let's talk about some fun stuff. What Oh, okay. So this is on here. All right. So when did you graduate high school, David?
2010.
2010. Okay. So you're about 12 years younger than me. But you would have been, I mean, you're probably a lifelong sports fan. You probably had a lot of exposure to Deion Sanders late in his career.
Absolutely. Yeah. Prime time.
Right. So I was born in 80. So I was about 9 or 10, 89 when he broke into the league, and he's playing football and he's playing baseball. I mean, Neon Deion primetime was it. He's in, MC Hammer videos, and, he was, it was my two favorite
swagger
athletes
before it was swagger.
Up. Right. It was absolutely like, there was Deion and Bo Jackson back then that were the two dual sport people. Bo was all hammer, like he was just brute force, but he was an unbelievable athlete.
All I can do is nod. Yeah,
right. Just keep nodding. That. And then there was Deion. It was prime time, right? He was out there, and he had this air to him that was like almost untouchable, and he knew it. But I remember one of the first books I ever read was a book, was one of his like early kind of biographical books. It was real short. I was maybe in like 6th grade or something. And I heard the story about when he was competing in track at Florida State, and he finished his relay running backwards, and they still won. And I'm like, that blew my mind. And from that moment on, because I love track, I love running, I was a sprinter. I mean, it was my two favorite athletes were really different. It was Emmitt Smith and Dion. So like this whole thing going on with him these last couple of years, getting into coaching and stuff, and then the impact, his personality is magnetic. So yeah, he's going to be on the front page. But the fact that they're winning right now, he's got a long way to go. Don't get me wrong. He's going to have a lot of adversity. He's not going to win every single game he ever coaches. But what are your thoughts on Dion and what he's doing right now, having the experience you've had with D1 programs and stuff like that?
Yeah, I love it, man. I think he's good for coaching. One, without getting too polarizing. I mean, obviously there's the minority piece to it. I think he's good for coaching because he's doing it his way. And he's coming in, he's unapologetic, and he's coaching the way he wants to coach with his personality. I think too, there's something to be said about leadership where you can just get people to buy into you, right? Like he'll be the first to tell you he's not an X's and O's guy. Like obviously he has, experience being on the field, experience playing high level. But he's not a schemer. He's not out here game planning and doing that stuff. Like he hired good coaches, surrounded himself with them, let them do their job. His job is to motivate and to organize and to monitor and to engage. Like that's what he does. And I think that's, a really unique blend of traits to have that self-awareness to be able to do that at that level. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see what he's done. I'm excited to see what he can build over time.
So We're talking about college football. So
yeah. So it was.
Okay, what's happening this weekend? What's your plan for this weekend?
Yeah, you got any big plans this weekend, David? Are you
Man,
working all weekend?
I will be glued to the TV on Saturday. This is the first season in 10 years that I've been able to be a fan. So this is new for me. This is uncharted territory. To try and kick back and watch some games, man, is completely new. I'm used to being on the sidelines, so I'm excited. This is a huge weekend with ranked matchups. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm a Penn State fan, so I'm excited to actually be able to sit down and watch some Penn State games. So.
I got a good buddy that's a Penn State fan. It sounds like they're getting in a good place. It's been tough for them the last decade or so. Huh?
Yeah, it's like they're finally getting over the hump. They're finally getting back to the point of, they're not Ohio State. They're not, I hate to say that, they're not Michigan yet, but they're getting there. And that's exciting for me, So as a fan, I was fortunate, like I said, the last decade I've been coaching, so I didn't have to suffer through it. So I kind of get to jump back into the bandwagon when things are good.
So Big Ten football. So Manny, just catch you up a little bit. College football, Division I is right underneath the pros. It's like the highest level you can get before you go pro. So Big Ten is a conference. There's a bunch of different conferences, hundreds of different D1 college schools. So it's not like NFL football where you've got like 30 some teams, right? So the Big Ten is Penn State is one of the schools in the Big Ten. And actually, it's more than 10 schools in the Big Ten now. But Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, Big Ten team. Michigan, Big Ten team. Illinois, Big Ten team. So it's relatively Midwest. We've got some other outliers like Nebraska has kind of made their way in and stuff like that, but that's cool. So we've got a Big Ten guy here, so we can
like the college football and the pro football. Do they like what I saw in basketball?
Mm-hmm.
That college games are of different time frames than
college games. Yeah. So the quarter length in college games is a little bit shorter, right?
I believe it's 12. Yeah, I think it's 12 minutes.
12 minutes, yeah, instead of 15. But college games, similarly to what you experience with basketball, different environment at the game. College, surprisingly, especially in the Big Ten, a lot of the college stadiums are bigger than any NFL stadium when it comes to how many people.
Really?
Yeah, like Michigan holds like 108, 110,000 or something like that, maybe more.
Yeah, when we played Ohio State opening weekend, there was 110,000 at the game.
At a college game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like you go to Lambeau Field and it holds maybe like 70 something. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of people for, any American.
It's crazy. And it's crazy.
It's a different environment.
Yep.
So, are college football more popular than pro, or they are at the same level?
I think college is probably more popular broadly.
Yeah, I would say commercially, the NFL is probably the most popular.
Right.
But from a standpoint of there's so many college teams, and from people getting involved and going to see their teams and stuff like that, and the things it does for the communities that it exists in and surrounding communities. Yeah, I would agree with you, David. I would
because there's like State College, Pennsylvania is a medium-sized town, right? And then every Saturday during football season, it becomes the third largest city in Pennsylvania behind Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. So it goes from a small town to the third largest city every weekend. And so what it does for the local economies is just unbelievable. Most of those college towns wouldn't exist without that.
I mean, Wisconsin's kind of a weird state like that. There's a few, I think Midwest states get to be like that, but almost everybody in Wisconsin identifies with the Packers, right? And the same way, almost everybody in Wisconsin identifies with the Badgers. You've got Marquette and stuff like that, but Marquette's just got a basketball program that's high level. But there's state schools all over Wisconsin that have D3 football teams, but all those state schools feed the big school, the University of Wisconsin. So college football is crazy. I grew up in Texas. So in Texas, big state, it's, there's more viable big teams in Texas now, but it was UT and Texas A&M. You were either a Longhorn or you're an Aggie. Okay. And like as a kid, it's just running thing. Your kids are either thumbs up or your horns. You know what I mean? So yeah, college, and that's football. To some degree, basketball falls in there too, but something about football in America that just resonates with people.
But you know what, like when I talk from from Indian standpoint, people in India know more about basketball players. I mean, they are big there. Like everybody knows about Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, like all these like big players. We have not heard. I mean, American football is so popular, but we have not heard much about like Aaron Rodgers or like any of the famous football players here. Why is that? I mean, why?
We could have a whole episode on the psychology of sports and international.
Yeah. Well, I think football is just not an international game yet.
Yeah.
Yes, if it's not an international game still, but it's like pretty popular here, and it can be popular everywhere. Basketball primarily, I think, like it originated in US. The game, from
Kentucky.
US, right? And even like baseball, lots of other countries are also playing baseball. Why football is not able to cross over to other countries?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's maybe
David's
going to
be watching football all weekend. Manny, what are you doing this weekend?
Maybe I'll watch some games. I mean,
sit around.
Yeah, sit around and watch games.
Cool.
If my wife lets me, otherwise, like I'll be
shopping or something.
Yeah. So weekends are not on me. Like I cannot plan my weekends. I
told you could come camping with me, but you didn't want to go.
Again, I'm telling you, like when I cannot plan, because I don't have the power to plan. My other half, like has the power.
I think we know who holds the leadership in the courthouse.
Of course.
Cool, man. Well, this has been great, David. Awesome. I wish we had way more time, but I know you've probably got a lot of things to get done today. Yeah, like we'll let some time, but I definitely want to take some time here in the future, bring you back on, and let's go deeper into what you've done and talk about how you've blown up since you came on this cast and talked to us. So
would love to, brother.
Yeah, this has been great. So let's wrap things up. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us for episode 2 of the Business Line podcast. We will see you in 1 week. Thanks, everybody.